This week on the 1040 podcast, we're joined by one of Ireland's most exciting DJs, John Gibbons. From teenage gigs and local clubs to sharing stages with some of the biggest names in the industry, John's career has been anything but ordinary. He's gone from aspiring rock star to international DJ, building his reputation on instinct, energy, and a deep connection with the crowd. In this conversation, John opens up about the realities of life in music, the sacrifices, the setbacks, and the wins along the way. We talk about his early days in school, his time in UCD, DJing 7 nights a week, how COVID forced him to pivot and rebuild. He shares his thoughts on the Irish club scene, what it really takes to succeed as a DJ, and where he sees the future of music heading. So whether you're a fan of John's music, curious about the club scene, or maybe even dreaming of becoming a DJ yourself, this episode is packed with insights. This episode is brought to you by Top Drawer Talent, the supply chain and procurement recruitment specialist. Let's get into it. Here we go. Thanks for coming in.
It's a pleasure. Good to be here.
Yeah, nice to finally meet you. But I think it was like a year ago, Dan mentioned your name to me, and I was like, Dan from Tenerife First Excursions. I was like, you should get in touch with John. I was like, oh, I don't think I'm ready yet for the for the attention. But thanks very much for coming in.
No, it's great to be here. I love the podcast and I love the kind of unique angle that you have on things. So very happy to be part of it now.
Yeah. But was the plan always to be a DJ or?
No, it wasn't. There were a couple of different plans in school.
Right.
Which is obviously when I started thinking about what it was I was going to do. I was interested in graphic design for a while and architecture as well.
Okay.
Did a bit of work experience in school on that side of things. In transition year, music became a much bigger thing than it had previously been.
Okay.
I was always into musicals and being on stage and drama, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But set up a band in transition year. Like I was convinced I was Liam Gallagher at the time. Like utterly convinced that I could do what he was doing. I was good. So I was the lead singer in an incredibly bad band. We did a couple of gigs and I mean, I never lost the delusion. I still thought we were brilliant at the time. But there was a friend of mine had introduced me to DJing and I was already into dance music. But once I saw that set of decks, something just bit immediately. And it was a hobby during school that became a way of getting kind of extra money or pocket money, at the weekends. And during college, I was pretty much not just DJing full time, it was commercial gigs at the time, bars and clubs, that kind of thing. And also weddings, mobile gigs, 21st, you name it, I did everything. Christenings. I just loved DJing.
Right.
And I kind of got used to the money it was bringing in as well at a time when like a lot of my mates wouldn't have had money, and it was I was just so invested in this. I loved it. And I had a DJ agency that I set up during college. So anyway, somehow managed to finish college.
Right.
The aim was to do the bar exam after that. And become a barrister. I said I'd give it 2 years after college, and the 2 years has now become 20. So, so yeah, it's not the traditional route, but it wasn't always the grand master plan. I'd be lying if I said that. I kind of fell into it, and the hobby became the job, and I just loved it so much and being immersed in not having to get a real job, which probably wouldn't have suited me. I've never had one, and then B, doing my hobby every day, and managing to eke out a living from that. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Is it quite hard though to make a living from being a DJ, or like do you have to put like the hours in to get the reward back?
Well, you do. Like, I'm a great believer in what you put in, you'll get back out if it's a career you're after. There are some people who will get very short-term success and short-term gains. And you would see examples of people who think, right, that's it, I've made it. If you might get that moment really early in a career and people kind of sit back and rest on their laurels and things take a downward trajectory from there. But anyone who's serious about it as a career, it's like anything. It really is no different. What you put in, you'll get out. You need some luck along the way. But again, I'm a believer in you make your own luck. Put yourself in the positions where the luck comes and you capitalize on it. And I see it the way anybody else might see their career. You have to be adaptable. You have to be open to change. You have to look at new opportunities. You have to roll with a lot of punches. There are ups and downs. And as the world around us changes, like technology has transformed what it is I do from when I started. And social media then, and the internet obviously in particular, but the way things are, even with the advent of AI, so much is changing so fast. So as in any career, if things are changing around you, you got to adapt to that as well.
Would you still like play gigs like with the records, or are you kind of laptop?
No, well, I've never used a laptop, but I haven't done a vinyl gig in donkey's years. I started off on CDs. The kind of vinyl side of things had started to dramatically tail off, I suppose,
Yeah.
when I was starting off. And the fact that I was doing commercial gigs, not dance gigs at the start,
Okay.
that was all CD based.
Right.
And then it was only kind of a couple of years into it that I really got into the vinyl thing and started buying records. But I wasn't doing gigs. It was just because I wanted to be, in inverted commas, a real DJ, you know.
Okay.
And I always wanted to be like a dance DJ. That was
That's
the
your thing.
ultimate goal, always.
Right.
But no, that like I only did a couple of like purely vinyl gigs, and it was at the stage where you might go to a club, there'd be CD decks there, and there might be one vinyl deck. So
Okay.
I would take the opportunity to use them, and I
Right.
was always kind of mixing at home on vinyl and stuff, but
Yeah.
it was never really part of my job per se. But it's still a medium that I absolutely love. You know,
Yeah.
it's far more hands-on in terms of, you know, absolutely immersing yourself in what you're doing. You're not technology reliant. Like, do you know what I mean? You don't have that
Yeah.
crutch to lean on
Okay.
in terms of the technology. So it's a very different skill set, I
Yeah.
suppose.
And do you know when you're playing the gig, right? Like, what are you using, right? Are you just rocking up with like the iPad or the iPod, and plugging it in, or
Yeah,
like what do you
a
do?
set of headphones and my USB keys. So all
Right.
my music, instead of being in a record box or CD wallet or
Yeah.
whatever, it's just on USBs now.
Okay.
I plug it in, and all my music is there. But I'm a bit old school insofar as a lot of DJs will use the software that's built into the decks and laptops and things like that, such as Record Box or Tractor or whatever.
Yeah.
Loads of different options out there. I literally just have folders with my tracks in them, and I go from there because that's how I learned. I just always had these CD wallets with like hundreds and hundreds of CDs.
Yeah.
I knew where everything was, and I went from there.
Right.
And it's still the exact same for me. So it's just a bunch of songs, and I never pre-plan my sets. There are always tracks that I know I'm going to play in any given set. Like, for example, my own tracks or tracks that are big at the moment.
Yeah.
But I tend to go with the crowd, and I act on instinctive feeling rather than planning something out.
Yeah. Because I'd imagine it's quite hard if you like have this pre-planned list of songs that you're gonna play, and then the crowd doesn't warm to the songs. Like, that's probably
Well,
an
but
absolute
that's
disaster.
exactly it. And that's why I never really understood why somebody would pre-plan their sets. You know,
Yeah.
like, to me, the skill of DJing is being able to look at an audience, understand that audience, or if you don't have it straight away, get a feel for that. You know, you can kind of
Yeah.
feel it out over time. Time being measured in minutes rather than hours,
Seconds more
obviously.
so.
You know, yeah, it can be seconds too. But to be able to then respond to what they're feeling, and in turn, and you actually develop a relationship with the crowd, or I
Yeah.
do anyway. That's how I
Okay.
perceive it, and that will guide the direction that I will go in, or they can guide me subconsciously in a particular direction too.
Right.
Whereas if I had a pre-planned set list,
Yeah.
as a lot of DJs do, and they don't respond to two tracks in a row, you can be dead and finished, and you lose your crowd straight away. And where you'd really notice that is something like a festival where there are other options on simultaneously, or a multi-room club, which would be the norm, particularly in Europe. Like, you
Yeah.
get a lot of bigger clubs which have several rooms. So if the crowd aren't responding to you, they just go somewhere else, you know?
Yeah. How are you developing that relationship with the crowd? Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for like demographic? Are you looking for like the sex, or the male or female? Like, what are you looking? What are you looking for?
All of that and a lot more. Like, it's a very interesting question because I often ask myself what it is, because it becomes, and I hesitate to use the word instinctual because it's not instinctual from the start. It
Yeah.
is it is a learned and a developed um skill. Again, maybe not the right word. It's a vibration, it's a vibe, it's an energy. So
Yeah.
I will go in, I'll scan the crowd obviously visually, and guys are very different to girls in how they will react to particular music.
Okay.
And it can depend. Geography comes into it. To take Ireland as an example, the further north you go, the harder the music tends to be, or the
Okay.
better the response to harder stuff, you know. So
Right.
styles in dance music like hardstyle have traditionally been much more popular in Northern Ireland than they have been down south. You go
Yeah.
down to Cork, Waterford. Back in the day, traditionally they were kind of deep house areas, techno areas.
Right.
A lot of that has changed and evolved over time, but
Mm.
geography does come into it. Where I'm playing in the world, a set that I would do in Ireland can be quite dramatically different to a set I might do in Miami, for example. You know, it'd be
Yeah.
a lot of Latin people in Miami, so it's much more percussive, much more groove based. They tend to dance more, where in Ireland they'll jump up and down, a bit more like a concert, you know, and react in a different way.
Yeah.
I love that energy, by the way.
Okay.
The Irish energy is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the age profile obviously
Yeah.
is a big difference, a mitigating factor, I suppose, in
Yeah.
what you're going to play. But then there's that X factor, that je ne sais quoi, that I can't quite put my finger on. And again, it's a feeling. you can just sometimes feel what a crowd is responding to without being able to necessarily consciously know what it is. You know,
Yeah.
it's an in here rather than an up there,
Okay. Yeah.
and that does develop over time. And some people will lean into that and take some risks with that. I've
Yeah.
always been one to do that, where some will maybe play it safe, and there's no right or wrong answer. But
Mm.
ultimately, if the crowd is responding to what I'm playing, I know I'm doing
Just
the right
keep
thing.
going on that track.
Exactly.
Is
Yeah.
it hard? Is it hard to like warm up for somebody, or does it depend then on who's been on before you, as opposed to the song that you first play when you first go out?
That's a great question because in the early days of my, say, dance music career, as
Yeah.
distinct from when I was doing commercial gigs, I was getting a lot of warm up slots. You know,
Okay.
a DJ coming through, a young DJ, you're not going to be a headliner straight away unless you've had a big track or something, or that early moment,
Yeah.
which I hadn't. So that's a skill in itself, and it's actually a skill I think has been largely, not completely, but largely lost. It was very, very important, and promoters would put huge emphasis in the past on setting things up for the headline DJ. So again, let's take Ireland as the example, and I don't know, Judge Jules, Tall Paul, somebody was over, and I was lucky enough to get
Slot.
a support slot. And it was known as a warm up DJ back then,
Yeah.
with good reason, because you were warming up the crowd so that the headliner could take over and
Mm.
then, explode that crowd. And it was very important not to play the big tracks. It was very important to create a mood and a vibe, as opposed to trying to get the biggest reaction you could
Okay.
from that crowd. That was the job of the headliner. And
Yeah.
I kind of, it annoys me sometimes that that has been lost, because you could have a lineup of 4 or 5 DJs and everybody is vying to play the biggest tracks. And, it's not that the headliner is the most important DJ. Everybody's important on the lineup, but the headliner is the person that people have largely paid to see and to be there to see. And I do think the emphasis and the focus should be on their set. And I think somebody who can demonstrate an understanding, it's quite rare now, but an understanding of how the flow of a night should be, as opposed to 3 DJs before the headliner coming in and banging out the Beatport top 10. I think that will benefit the night and the promoter long term, in terms of being able to, with an audience and having regulars coming back. It'll
Yeah.
just establish that night a lot better as a bona fide long-term fixture in a clubbing calendar,
I get you. Yeah.
anywhere. Versus, I've just noticed the residents can be the most important people in the club. If they're not good and if they don't understand what their job is, a lot of nights will fall by the wayside. And
Okay.
sometimes the promoter don't know why that is. Quite often it can be down to the residents. They could be good DJs in their own right, but they might be bad warm-up DJs or support DJs. And
Okay.
I still think that's a really, really important. You look at the big nights, say in Dublin, for example. Look at District X and how successful they are at the moment.
Yeah.
They've really good residents on board.
Okay.
There's an understanding of the flow of a night and how a night is teed up.
Mm.
And ultimately, anybody who goes in know they'll be entertained from the start, but that, they haven't shot their shot too early.
But
So an
yeah.
hour after being into the club, you haven't got all the big
Is
moments.
that like an ego thing, maybe, like with like the resident DJ or whatever, in certain places where they might be like, oh, I'm gonna do better than this fellow, like,
I think it is in
Yeah.
a lot of cases, not always. I think there's a lack of understanding as well. Everything's more immediate now,
Yeah.
not just in what I do, but in everything. So we're in this disposable social media age where everything is now, 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 next, next, next.
Yeah.
And I think that has translated into DJ culture as well. So
Okay.
you'll even notice a lot of DJs, they don't build a set in the same way. They'll just flip from track to track every 30 seconds, and there's a place for that, but there's not always a place for that. There's a
Yeah.
place for everything.
Depends.
So I think a lot of DJs will go in and they'll just take that approach, right? I've got 30 minutes or I've got 45 minutes and I'm just going to make a name for myself now.
Okay.
And that's a very short-term view. Fine, you might have a great night for yourself, but if you've annoyed the promoter, or if you've annoyed the headliner, or if you have left things at a tempo that doesn't suit the guy who's coming on after you, that can affect the night. It can affect the
The
enjoyment of
mood.
the crowd.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's a long-term approach. But I think because so many younger guys and girls coming through now, maybe in their early 20s, they're starting off DJing, or whatever age they might be,
Mm.
they have now grown up in a way that I didn't, with that disposable culture.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people don't have patience. And I think patience is something that's required in any career, in any job, in any industry. And even though mine is a very immediate, at the coalface, it's a very immediate seeming thing, you have to have a long-term view. And if you want to last, you've got to approach it in that way. So sometimes holding back can be the best approach. Keep your powder dry more often than not,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay. And would you ever have a case like where like a club promoter would be coming up to you saying you need to kind of turn down the tempo a small bit? This crowd is going absolutely wild, or things are getting a bit too rowdy.
Not so much now, because you know, a promoter will know what they're booking me for and they know what I'm about.
Yeah.
But very much so in the days when I was doing commercial gigs.
Okay.
And like, let's say I don't know, we're talking about maybe 2005, 6, that kind of
Okay.
time where I think commercial clubbing in Ireland, like going out 3, 4 nights a week, was at its peak, or you know, had hit its peak maybe already. And there were so many nightclubs in Ireland. You know, I was on that commercial circuit. I was doing dance DJing as well, but I was kind of moonlighting as what was the previous
Yeah.
incarnation of my career, and still doing that to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And you could be, I don't know, somewhere like, I just remember one particular bunch of bouncers in a club in Tullamore. And I loved playing this club, one of the big clubs in the country, you know.
Right.
But there was one particular bouncer, two of them actually, who were like, they would come up to you at the end, don't play this song, don't play that song. I used to play House of Pain, Jump Around near the end of the set.
Okay.
And they'd come up, no, the crowd are going too wild. And like, we'd be at loggerheads, because as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, that's my
That's your
job,
job, yeah.
is to make them react in that way. Whereas your job is to control them. And like, you know, we used to, like, we were at each other's throats, but I was always mindful of the fact that these guys have influence in the club as well. Like, there are club politics
Yeah.
at play, and this was part of a hotel too. So these
Okay.
were also security staff for the hotel. So they didn't really care about the job I had to do. They were trying to make their job that little bit easier. You can see both sides of it.
Yeah.
But I would, and still to this day, I would never compromise what I perceive my job to be. And I know what my job is, it's not perception. I
Yeah.
would never compromise that to make somebody else's job a little bit easier.
Okay.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm trying to be the best that I can at what I'm doing, be the best at what you're going to do as well. And we should get on okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that used to go on a lot. There'd be a lot of, you know, turn down the volume, turn down the tempo. They're going too wild. They're not drinking enough. They're drinking too much. All of this stuff, and
Okay.
I would see that as being outside of my remit.
Yeah.
And so there was a large degree of diplomacy
Yeah.
that needed to come into play there.
Okay. So yeah, your job is to keep the fire under the party and keep it going.
100%, and I don't compromise on that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And like, what would have been like the very first experience like you had with that? Like, would it have been early in your career, or would it have been like after you kind of built a bit of a reputation for yourself?
In terms of
The
the
bouncers,
influence of
yeah.
other, straight away.
Really, yeah.
Absolutely straight away. From the
Are you
time I
giving like a
started.
little prep talk before you start, or like are you just told during the set?
Oh no, there's some ignoramus that come up to you and start shouting in your face, like, yeah. And so I started when I was like 15. I was doing proper gigs by 16 in bars, and again, weddings, 21st, a lot of 21st at that stage.
Yeah.
So you'd go into a venue, and it could have been a GAA club, it could have been a hotel, it could have been whatever. And I'd go in and do my thing, and somebody would just come up to you in the middle of whatever you're doing and just turn it down. Or in extreme cases, a hand would come over, like a hotel manager's hand would come over and just turn it down. Or they'd lower the amps. And, you know, there's a difference between volume and sound clarity and sound quality. And one thing that mobile DJs, and I was doing a lot of mobile gigs, as
Yeah.
I've said, will learn very quickly, is to understand that difference, and that sound quality is paramount. You're not always looking to have it as loud as you possibly can.
Right.
Because that's, you know, that does not help the environment that you're trying to create.
Yeah.
If people are having the ears cut off by a load of high end in a track, it's going to burn their ears out. They're going to stop dancing. They're going to leave in some cases. And that's any kind of gig, whether it's a christening you're doing, whether it's I don't know, an underage disco, or whether you're playing a big club.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to have a little bit of the sound engineer at a very basic level about you as well. You were buying your own equipment, you were tuning your own equipment, you were
Yeah.
EQing it, etc., etc. And it's very frustrating then when somebody who doesn't know what it is that you're doing, just because the mother of the bride doesn't like a song or thinks that song is too loud, just comes in and tries to, you know, affect what you're doing. And it can have a very detrimental effect on not just the night, but on
Everybody else.
how you're perceived as a job. And, you know, word of mouth is a huge thing, or was a huge thing in that side of the industry.
Yeah.
It still is, but there was no social media back then. So you needed the bride, the groom, the mother of the bride to be telling their friends about you if you
Would
wanted
you?
the next gig and the next gig. So
Okay.
Oh yeah, that was immediate. And it was only really when I started to do dance gigs and working in an
Right.
environment that understood all of the different ramifications and the flow of a night and things like that, that stopped.
Right. It wasn't a case you had to bring along your own security and stuff to certain places to stop the
No,
dancers
no,
getting
not
at you.
not at all. Although I know one or two who would have brought certain individuals with them from time to
To keep
time. Yeah,
people very
less said about that, the better.
yeah, fair enough. But is the nightclub scene now in Ireland kind of dead since COVID? Like, or is it making a comeback, or like, how are we kind of looking?
It's a good question, and I think anybody who knows the answer to it is probably bending the truth for a particular narrative. There has been a huge die off in the club culture that existed beforehand
Yeah.
by virtue of the fact of two things, as I would perceive it. Number one, there just aren't as many clubs. I mean, so many clubs and venues shut down during COVID and didn't
Yeah.
reopen. And that's allied with the drinking culture changing dramatically in Ireland, also as a result of COVID, and exacerbated by the ubiquity of social media amongst young people. So there was it was noticeable immediate when clubs came back after COVID. And there was a honeymoon period there for maybe 6 months where everything went crazy and
Yeah.
it was, oh my God, things are better than ever. But you could see the drinking culture had changed. You had 18, 19-year-olds who had never gone out to a club before. They hadn't had that kind of the introductory phase that we all had.
Yeah.
They weren't even, say, knacker drinking in a field or bushing or whatever it was during COVID because they weren't going anywhere. They were sitting in their houses
Right.
and they were socializing via social media, and that face-to-face interaction wasn't a thing. When I started going out, mobile phones were just kind of, it was the cusp of them. Some of us had them, some of us didn't.
Right.
And texting was the limit of it, or a quick phone call. And it'd be, I'll meet you at such and such a time. And if someone didn't turn up, the group would carry on anyway, and you can catch up with us later. Whereas now everything is so kind of, well, again, to use that word, it's ubiquitous. Everyone is omnipresent through social media. And I could see straight away that people weren't interacting physically in the same way in clubs. And I remember the first gig back that I did, it was quite a young crowd.
Yeah.
And in the nightclub, it was almost like being back in the day at my own, like the discos that I would go to in second or third year in school.
Everyone's
The lads were on one
standoffish.
side. Honest to God, the lads were on one side, the girls were on the other side. And it was almost like, will you shift my mate type thing again, which young people are far more confident, I think, now,
Yeah.
or certainly prior to COVID, than they were when I was the same age.
Yeah.
But it was almost like it just went back. But you would see them texting each other
From across the
from
room.
across the room, and you could, because you just when you're doing this, as long as I am doing it, you can see what's going on in front of you. You just become a very adept at reading the room and looking at the little nuances and things
Yeah.
like that. And then slowly they'd start to come together. But it was arranged via social media, and I saw a bit of that for the first 6 months. That kind of went away then as people got used to being face to face
face-to-face, yeah.
again. But no one was drinking. Like nobody was drinking, and that's still the case. Like you'll see a lot of promoters now are very reliant on door charges, whereas in the past, or clubs that promote their own events, whereas in the past it was, right, we'll have a minimal door charge and as low as we can get away with,
Yeah.
and we make our money on the bar. That's really not the case anymore. People are either drinking at home, at parties, or they're not drinking at all in a lot of cases. There's no doubt in my mind that young people are drinking far less than they were in the past. Now, drugs use is, I wouldn't say on the rise, but that has changed a lot, So when I was starting off, ecstasy use was still rampant. I hesitate to say that's a good thing because I've never done drugs. I don't advocate the use of them. I've seen the damage they can do, but from purely selfish terms as a DJ,
Yeah.
that crowd to play for, where they were on a love buzz,
Yeah.
it was such an exuberant, enthusiastic, and loved up environment. You didn't see fights.
Okay.
You didn't see anything like that. Whereas you look at, say, the drug of choice now, which it's coke or ket. They're nobody knows what's in them. They're dirty. They're
It's mixed.
people, ego comes into it, aggression, all these things that you didn't have with ecstasy. So I mean, in an ideal world, nobody's taking drugs. But if you were to give me that crowd versus this crowd, it's a much more predictable
Predictable crowd.
crowd.
Yeah.
Whereas now anything can happen and there is trouble. And I don't know. It's just, it's so socially acceptable. Coke use in particular is so socially acceptable now. People are using it younger and younger as a
Yeah.
result. And I mean, you'll see kids openly using it at a festival without any fear of any kind of ramification or whatever. It's just, whereas in the past, if we saw somebody openly using Coke, it would have been, well, like, what the hell are they doing? Look at that. I mean, it would have been a
Yeah.
thing. It's not even a thing now. It's mad.
Do you think that's just maybe it's probably cheaper to buy drugs than it is to buy alcohol or get drunk?
That's a huge part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And, drug use has, I suppose, always been seen amongst young people as something cool. Everyone's going to experiment and try things. It's
Yeah.
just the nature of being young. But it is much easier to get your hands on. It's so available now as well.
Yeah.
Again, social media. I mean, you've a couple of texts
Yeah.
and suddenly you have it in your hand. You don't have to leave the house anymore if you don't want to. It's just so easy now. And it is much cheaper. Like, drink has gone through the roof in terms of prices.
Mm.
I understand why nobody would buy a drink in a nightclub, let alone a bar,
Yeah.
because it's mental money and people are getting that buzz in a different way. And they are, I mean, people have probably less money than they did in the 2000s, less disposable income. So it's all these factors that play simultaneously.
How does the Irish crowd fare on the drug scene compared to like other European countries? Like, are we worse? Are we better? Or is it very mixed?
It is quite mixed. I would say Irish crowds have a tendency to be a messier crowd.
Okay.
And again, I think that comes back to the fact that we are used to binging. And that's licensing laws, in my opinion, responsible for that to a huge degree. The fact that always everything had to be crammed into a short space of time.
Yeah.
Whereas on the continent in particular, people don't go out till much later. They might have pre-drinks or whatever, but they mightn't go out till midnight.
Yeah.
And then they can stay out till 6 if they want. And everything is just more spread out, managed, and it's less messy. So I don't think it's that Irish people use more drugs. And in a lot of cases, I don't think young Irish people drank particularly more than countries, say, in Central or Eastern Europe. Like the Czechs drink a huge amount as well when they go out. The Poles, same thing. The Spanish do,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be, perceivably they wouldn't drink as much as Irish. But I think they do when they go out.
Yeah.
They maybe just didn't go out as much in the past as they do now. But I think the fact that it's spread out means it's a less messy crowd. So in Ireland, everything was always short and sharp. The club nights were shorter. The highs were very, very high. And everyone crammed in those euphoric feelings as quickly as they could. So that extended to drug use and drink use, binge, binge, binge.
Yeah.
Whereas it was just more spread out everywhere else, really, bar say the UK. The UK is similar to Ireland in that regard, Scotland in particular.
If you could change one thing, like with the licensing laws and everything, like in Ireland at the moment, what would you change it? Like extend it out to 6 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, personally speaking, like I wouldn't be the biggest fan of authority anyway, as people who know me would well know. But I just open it up completely. I mean, to me, it just seems so ridiculous and so juvenile that I could walk into Tesco at 10 to 10 and I could buy whatever I want. I could in the drink section, and at 10 past 10, oh, you're not allowed. And the same thing with bars.
Yeah.
Right, so it's 11 o'clock. Oh, I can buy last orders or whatever. It's 10 past 11. I have to go home. Why? Like, this whole nonsense that it's to protect us from over drinking or it's somehow for our own good is like, it's utter claptrap, provable claptrap with the amount of studies that have been done, the work that groups such as Give Us a Night have done, and comparisons with other countries around the world where they don't have the same problems with alcohol and drugs abuse as we would in the environment of clubs and pubs, So I would just open it up completely. I don't think at this point it would have dramatic effect because the cost of running bars and clubs now has just become so exorbitantly high that I don't think most Central Dublin, Temple Bar, etc., I think it would largely benefit those bigger groups that run, bars and clubs in those areas. But around the country, it's very, very different. And staffing is a huge problem. Wages are a huge problem. The appetite for people working in the nighttime environment is not what it was prior to COVID. And I just don't think it would pay clubs to open late in most Irish towns and cities. So, look, far better to open it up. A 6 a.m. opening time would be welcome. Would it have a huge? It certainly wouldn't have much of a short to medium term effect. It might change the culture over time,
Yeah.
but I think it would largely benefit at this point. If it had happened 10 years ago, would have been a huge deal, I think,
Yeah.
and it probably would have, even with COVID, saved the club culture that existed then. But to go back to your original question and the second part of it, I do think there are green shoots emerging, because when something takes a fall, eventually something rises from the ashes anyway. And there are signs that a lot of smaller organic nights are starting to emerge around the country and in Dublin as well, primarily, but around the country. There are a lot of DJs starting to put on their own parties because they're not able to get gigs otherwise. And it's almost like the re-evolution. Everything comes full cycle, and we're back at that stage, which we hadn't seen for many years,
Yeah.
where people are having to do it themselves. And there's a different culture emerging. There's a different scene emerging. I don't think it's ever going to go away. And I just think we're at that stage where we've come to the end of one cycle and something new is being birthed again organically.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing, like a lot of artists doing, like, more tours or whatever, because they're not generating the revenue from the sales of the albums. Is that kind of
Yeah,
what it
well,
is?
that's flipped 180 completely with the advent of Spotify and streaming.
Yeah.
So in the past, an artist would tour to sell their music, whereas now you're releasing music to sell your tickets.
Yeah.
So that's completely flipped it. So, and again, social media is a big help with that now. I mean, you can, without touring,
Yeah.
sell your music to then get the tours, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a three-stage thing. And I was kind of slow to social media. It just seemed like more work to do, when it's
Yeah.
always my full-time job, and that's another full-time job. And people can build a career very quickly if they're very good at social media, and young people are incredibly good because they've grown up with it.
Yeah.
They've never known any other way, whereas I've had to, I suppose, learn it and force myself a little bit. And if I'm really honest, in the early days of social media, there was a slight internal resentment. And for God's sake, I'm after doing the whole DJing thing and working my way up and becoming really good at DJing. Then I had to learn to produce, because I produced after I DJ,
Yeah.
as you said. I had to learn to produce. I didn't naturally take to that. I had to grow to love that, as opposed to really, DJing performance was always my first love. And now I have to learn another major skill and somehow plug that into what I'm doing as well. But I'm also pragmatic, and it's right. It's your career, it's your job. You have worked that hard to get where you are.
We need
This
to
is
keep going.
just another thing you have to do now to maintain it.
Yeah.
So cop on, John, and do it. And that has been my attitude. And, I've made lots of social media mistakes as I've gone along. I've had to really figure out, like, I can't pretend that I'm 19 and do videos in the same way. So I've had to find what it is that people respond to in me. I still play to young crowds, and I still have that crowd connection, and my music connects with
Yeah.
younger crowds, which is I'm really, really grateful for.
Brilliant,
And those that were there in the early days have actually come with me. So I have a very broad audience in
Yeah.
a way a lot of other DJs don't. And that's great. And I've had to try and figure out a way to be able to converse online with both.
Yeah.
And that's been tricky, but things have started to, I've found that groove in the last 6 months to a year in particular. And it's now a help rather than a hindrance.
Yeah, that'd be like all the different collaborations you do, like from Westlife all the way through to like Amy or Laura, like, which is like the younger crowds, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even the style of the tracks, like I suppose I've had three incarnations to my career. Number one is the commercial side of things,
Yeah.
which we've discussed. Number two is when I started to break through in dance music, and that was largely the trance scene. I was producing trance music and a little bit of techno as well, but mainly trance, and would have been associated with that scene in particular. And then around 2015, that's when I started to scratch the commercial itch, and that's when I signed my first major deal. And I was releasing a lot of cover versions then, reworks of older tracks.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing now. It wasn't quite so common or popular back then, so I kind of had a USP then.
Yeah.
And it was very successful for me. But it got to the stage where I was getting a little bit bored of that. My label was pushing me to do that all the time. You need to just be the guy who does that.
Yeah.
And I knew there was so much more to me, because I had been scouted by them not doing that. So they knew that too. And I thought, surely there's a way we can mix that up and do both. As you would see someone like David Guetta, who's ultra commercial, but he also has the club tracks that he's releasing all the time as well. If you listen to David Guetta play a set live, he's very adaptable. Depending on where he is, it could be quite an underground set, and people who maybe haven't seen him in that environment will be shocked at that. But that's the background he came from too.
Yeah.
So while that wouldn't tally with what he might play main stage at, I don't know, at Glastonbury, for example, if he was playing at that, it would be a very commercial set. He's not always doing that, and I'm quite similar in that regard, in that I'm known for commercial music, but there's also much more to me than that as well.
Get you. Okay, cool. And look, let's go all the way back, right? School, right? Like, how did you get on school? Like, were you academic or were you like more the creative?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I was good academically in school.
Okay.
But I hated the academic side of it.
Would you have done your homework and stuff every night?
Up until transition year, yes. And like I did extremely well in the junior cert for what that's worth.
Yeah.
And again, my focus, as I indicated earlier, would have been towards some sort of academia.
Yeah.
So it was going to be maybe graphic design, which had the creative side, or law, which eventually was what I supposedly settled on. But once transition year kicked in, so much changed in that regard.
Yeah. What was it in transition year that changed for you? Did you just think this thing is a whole waste of time, like going fifth, sixth year, or like what changed? Like,
It was a
what flipped the
combination, I think.
switch?
I developed an anti-authoritarian streak, definitely. Just as I got older, I remember struggling with, what age would I have been in transition? 16, probably.
Yeah.
So, right, I'm 16 and I'm being treated the exact same way as the 12-year-olds that come into the school. That doesn't make sense to me. And I look at the 18-year-olds in sixth year and they're being treated the same way. That to me is a complete nonsense.
Yeah.
Because someone who's 12 and someone who's 18, they're genuinely different life stages.
Yeah.
And just this one size fits all approach to rules in particular, forgetting academia for a second, it just didn't in any way fit with how I was starting to perceive the world.
Yeah.
And then the transition year course was so broad and the focus was so non-academic, and we got to try so many different things, and I'd so much free time as well.
Yeah.
And no pressure whatsoever no exams, no tests, nothing.
That's it.
I was really able to explore bits of everything. And I've always been very sporty, but I was almost full time doing sport and doing music and doing and
Yeah.
hanging out with friends and just doing everything.
Chill.
I was starting to grow up, I guess, and starting to find myself a little bit more. And that creative streak has always been in me. That performative streak has always been in me. But I started to realize in transition year, this is something that I really want to do more of. And then when I went into fifth year and the focus was back on academia and the rules, which had been slackened off a little bit in transition year too,
Yeah.
came back in full of, I just thought, I can't stand this. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I learning about cloud formations and igneous rock? And why am I being taught languages, including Irish, our native language, as a subject rather than a language, rather than a live language? So I was doing French, German, and Irish. And luckily with French, I've always had an interest in languages. And I had been doing French in primary school anyway, kind of as an out of school thing.
Right. Okay.
And that was taught as a language in a fun environment. It was a conversational thing.
Yeah.
So I had an experience of that with a different language.
Okay.
And then you go into a classroom and you're learning numbers 1 to 10 and the colors and grammatical tables. That's not how, as kids, babies, we learn a language. It's an organic thing that you then put into practice and use. You observe and then use and make the mistakes. Still to this day, it baffles me as to why languages in particular, or a lot of academia in this country, is so based in what was being enforced in the 1950s, for God's sake.
Yeah.
It hasn't really evolved. And I know there are probably teachers screaming at me, that's not the way I do it. And there are exceptions.
Yeah.
There are schools that are exceptions. This is just my experience
Yeah.
of it. And I think it's broadly, I didn't go to private school or anything like that. It's a broadly common experience
Yeah.
for many people in this country. You look at countries like Sweden or the Netherlands in particular, people, like teenagers, can come out of school with 5 languages. 3 or 4 languages is common. Some can have up to 6 or 7. They mightn't be able to quote Shakespeare's translation of Shakespeare,
Yeah.
but they can converse, they can get by. It's a
Fluency.
useful tool for them in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think the approach to academia, particularly when I was in school was so rigid and one size fits all, and we are all different. You know, I mean, we're all so different. Those differences weren't acknowledged then to the degree that they are now, and it's a good thing that they are now, but they really weren't then.
Mm.
And if you didn't fit that little box that you were meant to be in, and I realized that I didn't, and I didn't want to, and I railed against it to a large degree, well, then you're kind of cast aside, you know. So I did enough to get by and get a decent leaving, get into college and stuff, but I resented every last minute of it. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. What would you, if you could go back and change something, right? Or if you could change something nowadays, like what would it be that you would change?
Um,
Or is there anything?
with regard to academia and school in
Yeah,
general,
just second level education. Yeah.
well, in my opinion, there should be far more emphasis and focus on life skills, on subjects that aren't the traditional subjects. By all means, have the traditional subjects available, and fine. I'm in my dream universe here, so I'm not taking into account are the teachers there to teach this. You know,
Yeah.
this is just my utopia here for a second. So bear
Yeah.
with me. Like for example, in the Netherlands, and there are many examples in my industry of DJs and producers who have broken through very, very young. Martin Garrix being a good example.
Yeah.
You can specialize in electronic music production in school at 15 or 14 or whatever it is.
Right.
You can then take that through to college, and you can branch off if you want, or maybe you've already forged a career by the time. If that had been available to me or many others, imagine how, like Ireland, which always has punched above its weight in everything, really, in
Yeah.
most things, imagine how much we'd be doing that now, because we're a creative country. We're that island nation. We've a different mentality to a lot of places.
Yeah.
It's always that, how do we break out of here? Do you know, it's that kind of thing. Maybe
off
it's
the island.
800 years and all that, but I don't know. But there is a slightly different attitude. It's us against the world, and we want the world to embrace us, and we want to be out there doing it and come home having done it elsewhere, you know?
Yeah.
I think with a much broader approach. So instead of studying igneous rock, and instead of the focus on, well, you'll get, you know, encouraged to do honours maths, which a lot of people find extremely difficult, but you'll get extra points if you do it. So why the vast minority who are exceptionally good at that, why are they disproportionately rewarded for that versus somebody who might be great at music, might want to learn, might want to do 4 languages
Yeah.
because they have an aptitude for that, might be a caring type of a person who does want to go on and do nursing. There's nothing in school to prepare them or help with that or encourage it. I mean, how many people know how to, I mean, my views on taxes are another story entirely, but know how to do taxes
Yeah.
or set up a business when they leave school? Very few in this country.
Yeah.
How many people know how to cook a meal, for God's sake, when they go to college for the first time and they're living out? Unless they've done home economics, and even then they probably
Still
don't.
struggle.
Where are the life skills? I
Yeah.
would have a much, much stronger emphasis on life skills. And I know that is being incorporated into the curriculums to a much larger degree
Yeah.
than has been in the past. But in my utopia, that would be the focus. If you want to do history, fine.
Okay.
If you want to do geography, fine.
Right.
But they're not the important things in life.
Yeah. Leave it open. Okay. Cool.
Mm.
And the academic course then that you chose then in college, that was law, was it, or is it something
No,
else?
I was going to do law, and the advice from a couple of family members who were barristers, still are, was to do a broader course, to do a more arts-based degree
Okay.
rather than law. They had advised if I wanted to be a solicitor, do the law degree, but if I wanted to be a barrister, I'd be better off doing something a little bit more language or English based, for the reason that I wouldn't be necessarily in a particular box. Creative thinking, the best barristers tend to be those who can think creatively and on their feet, and you know, have a very good command of the language, which isn't as important when you're sitting in an office as a solicitor and you've got time to research the nuances of the law.
Yeah.
So I chose history and politics in UCD, and that's what I did. That's what I absolutely hated. Not because there was anything wrong with the course, but because at this stage I was DJing 7 nights a week. I was running a DJ agency, and I just wanted to be doing that. That was exciting to me and
Yeah.
interesting. And I was like, I remember in second year picking like 7 hours a week in second year, because I picked the courses within my course that had the latest start times and the least hours.
Right.
So, I mean, I, I got the degree, but I cut every corner I could,
Yeah.
and I went through the motions just to get it.
To get it.
I didn't go to my graduation. I made very few friends in college. I didn't live the college lifestyle. The
Okay.
friends that I made were people I was living with who were all in college and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, the DJ world, that commercial DJ world, and the friends of my housemates
Right.
who, you know, so that's my college experience. It wasn't my classmates. It wasn't that. It wasn't the common thing.
Right.
When they were all going out, they were coming to the gigs that I was playing at. So I was socializing. It was very social,
Yeah.
but not the traditional college experience. So I got through the couple of years. And I remember the reason I didn't go to the graduation was because I had to be in Galway for a gig, and I was cutting it too tight. So the degree went under a pile of books somewhere immediately, and I don't know where it is. You know, I really didn't look back.
Yeah. Why did you finish it? If you had like all this stuff going on, right? Why did you finish the degree? Was it that
Because I hate quitting.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just in me. Like, I started it, I committed to it. The easy answer would be for my parents or whatever. It wasn't. They never put any pressure on me at all to do anything other than something that made me happy.
Yeah.
So it was just my own stubbornness. I
What
just thought, I'm just not going to quit.
Yeah.
I've already picked the easiest hours I can. I wasn't under pressure in college.
Okay.
So I just would have perceived it as a failure on my part. So it was really an internal thing. I'm just not quitting it. I want to get it done and move on.
Right, fair enough. And what was their thoughts on like you not getting a commercial job or a corporate job? Like, did they care? No.
Never an ounce of opposition to it whatsoever. They've only ever encouraged me. And I've never really spoken to them about it, but maybe it was because I've always been quite entrepreneurial anyway. Like, even in school before music and stuff, I'd always be setting up businesses or starting a band, or, you know, I'd always be doing things. I was always trying to figure out how to make money, generally through unconventional means rather than a job. I did work in a music store during holidays and things like that.
Right.
When I was in school. But
that's probably for a discount on CDs, was it? Or
pretty much, yeah. I mean, it was, and I just wanted to be surrounded by music, and it was great from that regard, because when I was doing commercial gigs, it cost a fortune to stay up to date all the time. It's not like now you download stuff or whatever, and it's quite cheap. Back then, you were upgrading equipment, you were constantly buying CDs. You were spending hundreds on CDs a week. So my parents only ever encouraged it. I think they could see probably that there was always method in my madness. I always had goals. I was always working towards those goals.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a case of, I don't want a job. I never perceived it that way. It was just, I want to do this,
And
not I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
you know. And if music hadn't worked out for me, or if something happened in the morning, I would get a job. You know, it's not that I want to sit around and do nothing, and I work really hard at this. And, you know, I took the lesser trodden path, I suppose, and had to make my own luck and carve out my own opportunities. And it took me a good bit longer than it does traditionally to reach where I reached. And then there were dips, and then, you know, peaks and troughs. So it's a career trajectory, you know, it's ups and downs.
Was the financial reward, right? Because you're DJing since you're 16. Was the financial reward always there as well? Did that kind of keep you motivated, or did it take a lot longer for the financial side of things to kind of build?
No, the financial side, like in school, to be earning, you know, 100 quid for a gig back then,
It's pretty big.
was huge. Yeah, so that was great. And I'd be an absolute liar if I said I didn't like having money, you know. And my friends might, you know, they might have a job at the weekends and they do a half day or something, and they'd come out with 20 quid at the time. Whereas I was doing 2 gigs at the weekend, and I've had 200 quid, I'd plow 100 back into, you know, to maintain CDs or whatever. But, you know, I had money at a very young age, and I always, like, I spent everything on something music related.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way I was. It's what I would have spent money on and did before I DJ'd. I was already spending money on music all the time.
Yeah.
So that was great, but it wasn't the driving factor. I wanted to do the gigs because I wanted to do the gigs. And to be honest, anyone who was giving me 100 quid for a gig back then shouldn't have been, because I would have done it for a tenner or for free in a lot of cases, you know. I just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not going to tell a lie. There would have been easier financial path. For example, if I had gone down the law route, a lot of family connections there that would have helped in that regard. And I probably could have done substantially better overall financially
Yeah.
out of that, and it would have been far more stable. And you could be looking at the retirement with the house in the south of France or whatever at a relatively young age. But it's just not what I wanted to do. And I've had really good periods, and I've had really bad periods. Anytime I've had to make the transition from, like I said, those three kind of careers, so the commercial, the trance, and the more underground DJing, and then the more commercial dance stuff. Each time I've had to make that transition, and the transition isn't fast, it can take a year or two.
Yeah.
The money has dropped because I've had to cut something off. So I've had to make a sacrifice. I've had to stop doing commercial gigs, for example, and take the plunge and take the risk and build up again. COVID was another one. COVID was financially a complete and utter disaster. Again, that anti-authoritarian streak. I refused to take the government's money, for better or for worse. So I had to figure out other ways and just scrimp and at that stage I'm an adult with the adult bills, and it's not the same as when you're 15, but where there's a will there's a way, and there's always a way. And so like things are good now again because the COVID hump is over. And the reason I'm talking about that still is it's taken till now for me to build up to the stage I was at when the cutoff happened. I was at a really, really good place in my career at that stage. I was doing a lot of really well-paid gigs, like substantially better paid probably than they are now. But now I'm kind of back at the level that I was then, just in terms of where I feel career-wise and where it can go. I feel those branches are open to me now to go in whatever direction the way they were in the past. So I can see the next 10 years as I could then. Whereas for the last couple of years, it's been hairy enough to try and angle myself career-wise into a position where I could see the next 10 years. It was a shorter term vision. I could see the next one, the next two, the next 3, 5, 10. So I feel I'm back at that stage, but there are some serious troughs with the peaks as well. And I've had to be careful that when times are good, to know that they can take a dip again. I mean, musical styles can change. Something could happen, such as COVID. I never in my wildest dreams imagined I would be 2 years completely out of work with zero income. But there were positives came out of that too.
Was that your first time ever, like with zero income coming in, or did that happen over the years? That was the first time.
From the age of about 12. Honest, I mean, I started doing odd jobs and setting up businesses at 12. It's the first time in my life there was no money. So I had to get a bit creative, and I did get creative, and I figured out one or two other things and developed some skills that I didn't have prior to it. And I built my own studio during COVID, and now I'd never picked up a hammer in my life, bar the Fisher Price one years ago, maybe. I no interest.
Not a bit handy.
No, completely not. But learned a lot of skills to the point where I'm unrecognizable in that regard. So I built the studio. Like it took ages, and I had to kind of scrimp and save. So I also, to furnish it, and I could only do bits and pieces when I could afford to do bits and pieces. So I started to buy and sell furniture. I wanted to kit it out in a particular way, and I really like old styles and kind of antique styles. So I managed to like turn a profit while furnishing the thing through auctions, online auctions, and this kind of thing, and picking up bargains like Dundee. I'd say I know every remote corner of Dundee in adverts at this stage. And I discovered just some other interests, stuff that I don't do any of that anymore. But it kept me occupied, kept me interested, and I actually managed to make a little bit then as well, or at least subsist, for those 2 years and get through the hump. So it was really tough to not know where the next paycheck was coming from.
Do you see, you have kind of this legal kind of background, right? And now you've got like the music producer side of things. Do you think you'd ever be like an expert witnessing like like the music cases or the copyright cases? Like, do you think you could do something like that, or is that even something you'd consider?
Probably not at this point. Like the music copyright there are so many grey areas within it, and I'm not an expert in any law, but I'm not an expert in music law either. So I would have to cede to those who would know a lot more. And there are, like, it's a very specialized area, and there are relatively few music lawyers, particularly in Ireland. Shout to Willie Ryan, who's the preeminent one in Ireland at the moment, and like does a sterling job for so many Irish artists and beyond. Um, so no, I don't think so, to be honest. It's not something I'd be interested in, and it's not something I found that the side of law that I had a particular aptitude for was a lot of civil and commercial law, and me being the anti-authoritarian, I was always interested in the nefarious things that the banks were up to and that the state
Okay.
was up to. I have to tread carefully in this, but
Oh,
yeah, so I know a bit around, say for example, mortgages or that side of things, civil law in particular.
yeah.
When it comes to things like parking tickets and stuff like that too, I know, yeah, a lot of
Cut
that,
the clamps off.
But the music side of it, no. And I have experience of, because I've done a lot of cover versions, I have experienced
Yeah.
being attacked on copyright issues. But again, it's generally the label will deal with that side of things.
Okay.
It's not something I've ever had to get personally involved with.
Right.
I'd be aware of what's going on, but not something of particular interest, no.
Yeah. Do you need a label to be a DJ, like, or do you need to be assigned to a label, or do you need to have like a label represent you? Or...
Short answer is no. Now you don't. You did in the past.
Yeah.
And it can be a huge help, but it can also be a hindrance. And I'll expand on that by, in the past, especially before DSPs were everywhere,
Yeah.
streaming services, you had to physically release your music.
Right.
So you needed a structure. It cost a lot of money to do that. So you needed a label. The labels had the money and the wherewithal and the contact, but it was very difficult to do that independently. It was possible.
Right.
And in the country and Irish genre, that was very common, like people, independent releases.
Yeah.
But no, for dance music, you really, to be able to press a vinyl, burn a CD, stuff like that, and get it stocked so that
Right.
people could get access to it, you did need a label. The labels knew how to promote it. Social media didn't exist, and it was a necessity. That gradually, with the advent of Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that, it started to become less and less important.
Okay.
Much, much easier to release tracks. You could do it independently now. Go on to, any service. They're everywhere, whatever it is, DistroKid, CD Baby, all these services, Label Works.
Yeah.
And you can do it for like 20 or 30 quid. You can have a track out there.
Right.
Now, the downside of that is everyone and anyone can do it. And I mean, I read some statistic recently, and I'm making up the numbers, but it was something astronomical. So, for example, there were 200,000 tracks released in 1990.
Right.
Whereas there are 200,000 tracks released a day now. Now, those they're not the right figures, but it was just something mad like that. So there's a lot of bad music being released now as well. Music, that filter system is gone that did exist with the labels, but the upshot of that is you're not reliant on somebody else to sell your product for. You're not relying on, number one, somebody else to believe in what it is you're doing, them to then promote what it is you're doing in a way that you're happy with, but that they're also happy with.
Right. Okay.
You're not relying on someone else to reach the market. You're not relying on someone else to provide your audience for you and your fan base. You can do that yourself. You can build a sense of community now, and a combination of streaming services and social media allows for that. Like, the world is literally your oyster as a musician now, or as a DJ or producer. It's very hard to cut through the noise because of the sheer volume of everything that's out there now. It's, I mean, I'm sure it's no different in what you're doing. There are so many podcasts out there now, good, bad, and indifferent. So it can be quite difficult to just establish that footing, which clearly you've been very successful at doing, and then expand from there. It's the early stages are the harder part, and it can help still to have a label. For example, if you're offered a major label deal and built into your contract, and here's where Willie Ryan and co come into it, to be able to understand the 22-page contract that comes your way, and what options are, and what advances are, and what all these different things are, all these different things that make up the contract. So many people are guilty of jumping at the first thing, including myself, jumping at the first opportunity that comes. Oh, I'm signed now. Oh, I'm with a major label, whatever it might be. I've made it. And tracks have come out, and straight away you take that jump and you're doing much better than you were before. But then down the line, what often happens is, well, you're chatting to somebody in the label and no, we're not releasing that song. But what you mean? You like we have to have a release out in the next 6 months. You know, we're not doing that one. We're going to release this song that somebody else wrote, and we're going to put your name on it. And that hasn't happened with me. But you could be put in the room. Then we want you working with A, B, or C. Fine. You don't get on with A, B, or C on a musical level, and the music isn't as good as the music that you think you're making yourself. You can suddenly find yourself at loggerheads with the label.
Right.
That might not always be the label's fault. It could be the artist's fault as well. It could be a combination. Um, and a lot of people then get tied in. Let's say you've done well and suddenly a track is released and it doesn't do well and the next one doesn't do well. Labels, if you're signed up to a 10-track deal or a number of options or whatever it might be, you can be just shelved for the next thing. And now there's always the next thing coming through just like that.
Yeah.
You know, A&Rs, rather than scouting gigs and listening to demos now, they're going on to SoundCloud and seeing what's popping off, what's hot on TikTok, what's trending. And
Okay.
in a lot of cases, labels won't sign now unless something is already popping off. So
Right.
we love your track, but we're not signing you because you don't have 50,000 followers. And we're not signing you because your track isn't already on 1 million streams.
Right.
So at that point, why would I sign with you anyway? My track's already popping off. Why would I sign over
Yeah.
the potential rewards for what? You know, so there's a funny kind of a gray area now to try and be able to weigh up, is it right to sign with a label or not? And the answer in the past was generally, yeah, it is. That's not necessarily the answer now. It can be a lot more beneficial to not sign.
Okay. And what is the process, right, for like going with a label, right? Is it like you go through this like X Factor type situation, right, where like you're in a contest with like 4 or 5 other DJs, or is it just you know you're a good DJ, these people come speak to you, or do you go and look to speak to labels? Like what way
It,
does it
it
work?
it it wouldn't be the first case really. That's not a thing in my experience
Yeah.
anyway. Contacts are a huge part of it. So let's say you're making tracks and you know somebody who knows somebody within a label, and getting heard, getting your track heard is the hard part
Yeah.
with labels. So if you can get your track heard, that's the first hurdle. And if it works for that label and they like it, well then, you know, I mean, take aside the social media thing for a second. Traditionally, if they liked it, well, they might have a punt on it. If you've 2 or 3 tracks that they like, they might ask to hear more. That's quite often a thing
Right.
because it's very easy to sign an artist and they actually only have one track and they
One
can't
track
follow
wonder,
up, you know, and there's money been invested then in the artist. So if you've got, you know, if you're showing signs that you've got more in the locker, that can be a very beneficial thing. So that's generally the way it worked. Then, particularly during COVID, SoundCloud became a breeding ground for signings.
Okay.
So everybody was sitting at home, particularly in the UK and Ireland, listened to SoundCloud, and that SoundCloud really exploded during COVID for whatever reason. And DJs really and producers really benefit because obviously you could just in an instant get an account and upload your music,
Yeah.
and it wasn't for commercial consumption, but you could build up a community.
Right.
And people were starting to follow other DJs. A lot of Irish DJs broke through during COVID. They had a big track. They had another track. Like look at acts like say Belters Only.
Yeah. Very
Um,
much.
they were they were already established producers, the two lads in their own right, but they came together and during COVID really exploded.
Yeah.
And that happened for quite a number, and a lot have tailed off since and haven't been able to capitalize on it or have got stuck in deals and are not able to release their music or whatever. But that became a way of labels scouting talent that has continued. So social media is where most of the music now is spotted, as opposed to sending it off to a label and hoping you get heard. If you've a track that's trending, if you've a track that's popping off, you've a great chance then if you can, even if you're not spotted, if you can put it in front of a label if you want to get signed.
Yeah.
And they'll be interested at least.
And let's say, is there a way to know like the difference between a good label and a bad label, or is there such thing as a good label and a bad label, or like should you look at it like a label that specializes in your genre or your niche?
It's a great question. I don't think there's a definitive answer. The first part of it, yeah, there is such thing as a good label and bad label.
Yeah.
A good label is a label that has the artist's best interest at heart, the interests of the track at heart. They're not necessarily looking to turn a fast buck. They're in the business to make money, yes,
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily looking to turn a fast buck at the expense of the artist, and that can happen. A lot of labels will sign an artist on the basis of one track to, maybe a 5 or 6 track deal, So the first track does well. They don't actually have an interest in a second track or a third track. They might, but it means another label can't snap up that artist then. So an artist can get stuck and shelved. You know, it's a horrible position for anyone to be in.
Yeah.
And the labels generally don't care. So number one, I mean, interpersonal connection between artist and somebody in the label is very important. It's less likely for that to happen if that's the case. You know, anonymity is the worst thing you can have within a deal. Again, a clear path, a clear plan. I mean, for me, the label would have to be able to demonstrate that they have experience of providing a medium to long term plan for the artist.
Okay.
It's not enough just to put out a track anymore. You can do that yourself, as we've said.
Yeah.
There needs to be some sort of goal and not just throw mud at the wall and hope it sticks.
Right.
Because I'm not going to spend 5 or 6 years of my career on the off chance that something happens. So how they're going to promote a song is very, very important. You could be with a good label, but the wrong fit for a label.
Okay.
And I think, I mean, I've been with a few different labels over the time. The label that I signed to in the UK, Good Soldier, first, were incredible. I mean, they launched my career to a level that I never imagined I would get to, and always hoped I would, but never really saw how that would happen.
Yeah.
They were a great label from the point of view of being able to sell me and provide career direction. Where I ultimately got a bit frustrated in that deal was they didn't necessarily understand the more underground side of dance music that I had an aptitude for and a skill set and a reputation in.
Okay.
And that side of it was just put to one side
Right.
for a period of time. And that was a frustration for me. So from the commercial point of view, the label was a great fit for me. But when I came out of that deal and was looking for another label, it was very important that that box was also ticked for me.
Right.
So it wasn't that I had a problem with the first deal. It's just I wanted something a little bit different. I wanted that evolution, or that
Yeah.
re-evolution, the wheels to come full circle.
And is it a case where like you have to there's certain metrics that you have to hit, right? So you have to release a song every year, or you have to play X amount of festivals, and then are they arranging the festivals or the club gigs or the events or
No,
what
the
is that
label
side of-
generally wouldn't be involved in that. That would be a lot of DJs
That's-
do that themselves,
Yeah.
but agents, so the
Okay.
agencies would organize that side of it. The label, in some cases, they might have a 360 deal where it's all encompassing and they have a financial stake in the gigs that you're doing. The label might be part of one of the bigger agencies or be affiliated with them, so there can be links and tie-ins. But generally, the agency side and the gigs are separate to the actual music side of it.
Okay.
But with regard to the track promo and the plan for the music itself, that is the remit of the label.
Right. And what's the difference, right, between an agent and a label? Are they not the same things? Do they not do the same things, or is it totally
No,
different?
they don't. So the label's responsible for the release of the music.
Yeah.
There may be other things, and they may have an interest in things like merch or depending what the contract says. But
Yeah.
like for the ease of this conversation, the label looks after the music.
Okay.
The agent is somebody who's responsible for the live side of it. So they're the go-between a venue and you getting gigs and you yourself. It's very difficult once you reach a certain stage to deal with your own gigs. A lot of DJs by nature and artists it's very difficult to sell yourself in any
Yeah.
walk of life. Somebody who is a salesperson is better qualified to do that. And a lot of creative people are not salespeople. Some are great at it. I'm not. I'm terrible at that. And I mean, I'll still, you want to offer me 50 quid to headline Electric Picnic? Yeah, I'll do it because I want to play Electric Picnic. That would be, that's a characterized version of what my approach would be. So I need an agent. I need that buffer. I need somebody
Yeah.
who can say no, who can say, well, no, this is his fee. He's not going out for less than that. Who can negotiate and be a salesperson and be realistic about my worth.
Yeah.
And that, they get paid a commission to do it as well. So that's where an agent is very important. And the right agent can be far more important in a lot of cases than the right track or the right label. A bad agent means you're not working or you're put in. There's no point booking me for a drum and bass festival, no matter how big the festival is. Don't put me in front of 10,000 people who are expecting drum and bass.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a complete disaster.
Right.
The wrong agent would,
do
you know, I mean, again, the characterized version, but can be that harmful to you.
Right.
Or worse, get you no gigs. I mean, the killer in this business is apathy. I would much rather somebody was giving me dog's abuse online because they hate my music or whatever track is out, and it does happen,
Yeah.
than saying nothing at all. Because by very nature of it is, for every person who's dogging you and is vocal about it, people are more likely to be vocal about something negative, in my experience. So for every person who's dogging you, there are 10, 50, 100 people who really like what you do.
Yeah.
They'll turn up at the gigs, and that's their way of saying we like what you do. And that, you know, that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
I don't need my ego stroked online every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, so I actually embrace the abuse. And I've spoken to a number of social media influencers about this. Some guys and girls with like massive followings in the millions. And it's very interesting to hear their perspective. Like, you start off with a thin skin, you develop a thick skin, then you realize, oh, how I can use this stuff that used to offend me to my benefit. So some of them will actually put up posts online where they're deliberately looking to elicit a negative response to spark the conversation.
Yeah.
And then their fans will row in behind them against the other thing, but it's just feeding the algorithm. I mean, it's so cynical. We're talking about feeding algorithms, but it's the very nature of it.
But that's how it works, right?
That's where the abuse can actually be a positive thing if you're willing to. It's what you do with anything. Do you know what I mean? You
it's
can
how you
take
perceive
the
the
bottle of
problem.
water there. Is it positive or negative? Well, like, if you try and drown me with the water, it's a negative thing. Whereas if you try and hydrate me, it's a positive. It's what you do with it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's no different with abuse or anything like that. I'm not sure how we got onto abuse, or if I even answered your question.
Don't worry.
Bring me back on course by all means. But yeah, it's just an interesting little side note, I think.
What kind of, if let's say, you know, an agent let's say I'm a young DJ, right? An agent approaches me, you know, what kind of questions should I be asking that agent?
Okay, where do you see me?
Yeah.
I think it's important first for the young person to, before they have that conversation, to know what it is they want, even if it's only short term. Where do you want to be this time next year, for example? If you know that, then that will help you frame the questions.
Okay.
So you then ask those same questions, such as, where do you see me in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time? What kind of gigs are you, number one, able to offer for me? Can you demonstrate that for the other artists you work with, that you are getting them those gigs? Some sort of track record. I mean, there are a million people out there who'll want to be your agent if they see you popping off.
Yeah.
There are only a small handful of those million people who can actually do what they promise. So some sort of track record is important.
Okay.
Look at the trajectory of the careers of others that they've worked with. What level did they start from? Is it a similar level to yours? If so, how did it progress? And did it continue to progress? Maybe have a chat if you can get in touch with one or two of those who have worked with the person before, and just, what was your experience? But basically, it's what can you do for me? And then, how tied am I into anything? Generally, agreements with agents are quite loose. If there's, you know, a contractual arrangement, it might be a 1-year rolling contract. If anyone's looking to tie you down for 3 years, 5 years as an agent, run a mile. This is my experience, you know, run a mile, because that's not the standard practice. A good agent who's worth his salt won't need to do that, because they'll be getting you work, they'll be making money off you as a result as well, and you'll want to stay with them.
Yeah.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas a label will have far more strict contractual restraints. So, you know, it's, for me, the biggest thing with an agent has been the personal relationship with them. If you have a personal rapport with them and can develop that, they're more likely to work hard for you. You know, it's like anything. Interpersonal relationships are so important in any job, in any business, in any industry. Your agent can't be just this anonymous person who's getting you the odd gigs. They won't have they're not invested in any way emotionally in you then.
Yeah.
They need to be invested in you as well. Another thing is, how many artists do they have? It can be very easy to fall for the lights. So let's say one of the big agencies, you have a track that's doing well, it's popping off, and that one of the big agencies come calling, UTA or CA or one of these, and you see, oh, they've got David Guetta and Calvin Harris and Patrick Topping and Carl Cox and whoever else. I want to be with them. But if you're Johnny from down, down the road here, they're not going to view you the same way as any of those artists. You are a very, very small fish
Yeah.
in a huge pond. So you are incredibly reliant on the track that's popping off for you now, continuing to pop off and do well and to follow that up. And I honestly think that somebody starting out is much better with, even if it's somebody that they know, but someone who's a salesperson, understands how to sell.
Right.
They're selling you, they're selling your music, they're selling your product. In a very saturated market. Far better to be that big fish in a very small pond,
Right.
provided the person who's doing the selling is good at what they do,
Okay.
than just being completely anonymous.
Yeah.
You're just not going to get gigs. You know, it's what can you give me? You have to be quite greedy and quite selfish. You don't have to be a dick about it, but you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to be selfish to a degree, and look after your own interests. If they're not working for you, and they are working for you, if the relationship feels, this is always a rule of thumb for me, if a relationship has got to a stage in anything where somebody who's working for me, it feels like I'm working for them,
Yeah.
well, then it's time to make a change. So
Okay.
don't go into an agency relationship where it feels like you are working for them. It should be symbiotic, but at the end of the day, you're the artist, they're selling you, i.e., they're working for you. You're not working for them, you know. So it's different than management is different to agency as well. Sometimes they're combined, but a manager is somebody, and it can be anybody who's got your interest, your best interests at heart, who can eke out different opportunities. They can be a buffer, say, between you and the agent. They might deal with the agent or the label. A good manager is worth its weight in gold. A bad manager can banjax your career, you know.
Okay.
So if you know what you're doing and you're unsure about somebody else coming on board who wants a piece of your pie, because you're going to have to pay for all this,
Yeah.
with commissions, find out what it is they're about from a third party or an independent source or someone who's worked with them, whatever it might be. And if you can't, follow your gut. If you can't see immediately what they're, if it seems too good to be true, it always is. Not generally, always is.
Right.
And if you're just not sure, err on the side of caution. Because if what you have to sell, your track popping off, you as a DJ, whatever it is as good as you believe it is, and the agent is telling you it is, or the label is telling you it is, and you say no, somebody else will want it too, then you'll really know.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just one person and they're offering you the sun, moon, and stars, that's a red flag.
Okay. So
Yeah.
watch out for those guys.
Yeah, and there are loads of people like that.
And a young DJ now, right? Like, what's the first piece of equipment they should be getting? Is it just a laptop and a piece of software?
It is now, yeah.
Yeah.
The bar for entry for a producer or DJ is so low compared to when I started.
Yeah.
And, you know, some DJs bemoan that. I don't. I think it's great. Like, I would have loved if it was like that,
Yeah.
and I didn't have to spend hundreds every week. And I mean, for me to produce when I started, I had to do a course. I had to use other people's equipment. There were bits and pieces of hardware in the studio, and that's all just been blown completely out of the water. You can get a laptop, you can get a DAW like Ableton or Fruity Loops, whatever you choose, and you can start producing that day. And the resources out there online now are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, you can learn anything you want to learn for free through YouTube regarding production. There are numerous forums out there, depending on what equipment you know, what a DAW, which is a digital audio worktop, I think, or I don't even know what it stands for, but like your Cubase, Logic, Ableton, Fruity Loops, whatever.
Right. These are different brands of software, is it?
They're just the different brands
Yeah,
of,
okay.
of, you know, I suppose sequencers that do exactly the same thing. And you use different plugins, which are the hardware emulators,
Right.
on those. So it doesn't really matter which one you use, whatever you're most comfortable with. Probably the easier ones to learn on are, I use Cubase personally. It's just what I learned on that first course that I did. That's
Right.
what was being used. For, Ableton and for FL Studio, Fruity Loops, as it was known, are very user friendly
Yeah.
for the beginner. So I would recommend one or other of those.
Okay.
And you can just start producing straight away. I don't know how to do this. Okay, look it up YouTube. There'll be 8 million tutorials. There'll be forums available. And now with the advent of AI,
Yeah.
I mean, ChatGPT, for whatever we might
Talk
think
you through
about it,
everything.
if you're a young producer, it is your friend.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this. Never mind YouTube. Ask it like you would ask, you know, anybody. Like, you've got an expert there who will guide you towards the specific YouTube video. So rather than spending a day trawling, looking out up,
Just ask it.
it'll tell you. I mean, I originally was resistant to that for about 5 minutes till I saw it in action. If you can afford it, get a paid ChatGPT account because it's just it'll go so much deeper, and then treat it like the greatest producer of all time sitting beside you in the room.
It's the most intelligent thing you can have in your pocket.
It's just ridiculous. There's nothing it won't show you how to do. Nothing. And once you know how to do it, you know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I honestly think if I was starting to produce now, today, I could probably learn in the next 3 to 6 months everything that I've learned over the past 15 years as a producer. And that is no exaggeration, possibly quicker. It's incredible.
Yeah, but it's probably hard though to, like, AI probably won't replace that human kind of feeling that you get like when you're looking at the crowd. Like AI can't do that, right? Or like it could, like, let's say you were going to an AI only gig.
Yeah.
It could totally bomb, right, and be brutal. Or do you think it could?
I hope so. Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, as we spoke about in the early parts of the conversation, like I struggled to articulate the feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't, to me, that's the most important thing. I put up a TikTok actually in the last day or two asking people what do they think a real DJ is. Because you hear people saying, you're not using vinyl, you're not a real DJ. And then it was, oh, you're using a laptop, you're not using CDs, you're not a real DJ. Now it's whatever. There's always some reason you're not a real DJ. And the older lads are, because they've been passed out maybe or they haven't evolved, they're just giving out. But I've lost train of thought there now. Sorry, Connor.
What's an actual real DJ? So
what was it you said before that? Sorry, I just completely lost train of thought.
So the human feeling, right, for like at the gigs.
Gotcha. Yeah, the human feeling.
But then,
so as I said earlier, the most important thing for me is still the vibe, the vibration, the energy that I have with the crowd. It's not a conscious thing; it's a subconscious thing. It's something that just happens. It's almost like, how does a baby know how to breathe when it comes out of the womb using its mouth and nose rather than the umbilical cord? How does a cat know how to feed its kittens? It's just, we don't know. It's a subconscious thing. It's built in. It's just there.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can replicate that.
Okay.
And I don't know how AI could ever replicate. We have a connection here as we're chatting here across the room because we're in the room, which is a different connection than we would have if we were on Zoom, or a different connection again if we were on the phone, or a different connection again if we were conversing on email. We could have the very same conversation or the same topics, but it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
What would come out it mightn't be as, hopefully some of the viewers are engaged now. It might, if it was text on the screen, I don't think it would be as engaging.
Yeah.
I don't think that can be replaced.
Okay.
I think musically, the more I see of what's been rolled out in AI, and it's clearly been there for a long, long time, but we're allowed to see it now.
Yeah.
It almost feels like every day it's getting more and more realistic. Like, I can quite literally, instead of hiring a singer or a session musician for something, I can just literally sing it very badly in the style of Liam Gallagher
fix it
into a microphone in the studio, plug it into something online in AI, and fully tuned vocals that sound like someone who grew up in Spanish Harlem can come out the other end, and it can be in the style of whoever, and it's just astonishing, and I cannot tell the difference.
Can that actually be done? Like, so you could...
in 5 seconds. If we'd a laptop here, I could do it for you in 5 seconds.
Really?
Now, you couldn't do that 2 months ago.
Yeah.
You knew it was coming, but now it's there straight away. It's just ridiculous.
We'll probably have to use like AI pop stars coming down the line.
Well, they have them already. I mean, one of the biggest stars in Korea for the last couple of years emerged during COVID, completely AI.
Yeah.
Holograms on stage. All the music is AI, and there are more and more of them emerging. Massive fan base, and there's not a human. It's just a corporation. It's a corporation that's feeding commands in and boom, 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 boom.
Would you use one as like for an alias? No. No. Maybe.
Yeah, I would. If I thought the rewards were there, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
And again, if they're you know, purists sitting there saying, "Oh, well, you sell out." Yeah, okay, grand. Yeah,
Yeah, it's,
would I if it gave me financial security? I'm not harming anyone by doing it.
yeah,
Um, am I harming? You know, am I harming the lifeblood of the industry? No, because the lifeblood of the industry is very quickly becoming. Well, it has already become an industry or a world. It's a world now
yeah,
that is moving with technology. I have a lot of issues with AI in a more general sense, a huge number of issues with it, but regarding what can it sustain me in my career and continue to do that without harming anybody else? If the answer is yeah, of course I'm going to
gotta
embrace
do
it.
it. Yeah.
Of course I'm going to adapt. Of course I'm going to evolve. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And look, what would be like your top 5 clubs in Europe that you kind of recommend to go see if you're on the party scene?
Um, okay, like some of them have closed during COVID. Like the instant response would have been Lush in Portrush in Northern Ireland for
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
Iconic world top 50 club for years and years and years. Incredible, a club that I wanted to play in from when I was that height.
Really. Yeah.
Finally managed it, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago for the first time. It was just a huge moment for me and was lucky enough before it closed to do quite a number of gigs there. But now, currently, I would say BCM in Mallorca,
Oh, yeah.
which is still on the go and still as big as ever.
That place is
And
thriving like 7 nights a week.
yeah, it's just huge.
Yeah.
And has always been from day one. Again, a club that I grew up hearing about, seeing compilation CDs linked to it,
Yeah.
and like I never thought I would ever play in it, let alone do a bunch of gigs. You know, it's just I remember the first time standing there and thinking like it was a pinch me moment.
Yeah. It's
Is
huge.
this real?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. You know, so that's probably my favorite from the point of view of the club being so good, but also being so iconic and what it meant for me in my career as
Yeah.
well. Um, the Foundry in Carlow. Carlow's my hometown.
Okay.
That's one of my favorites. Again, for a number of different reasons. Hometown.
Right.
Didn't play in it for 15 years, as I was where I would have been known in Carlow as the guy who did the 21st for a long time, and you know all that.
Yeah.
Who would have played on in every bar in Carlow for years. So I wasn't. It was harder for me to be perceived as what I am now,
Yeah.
i.e., you know, an artist, I suppose, as opposed to just a DJ, a
DJ.
local
Yeah.
DJ. So it took a long time for me to get a gig there, and once I did, I'll play there twice a year now, and it's, in my opinion, the best club in Ireland that's currently open.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah, now it has been one of the best clubs in Ireland, top 5 certainly for the last 15, 20 years since it opened. It's
Right.
phenomenal.
Get down, check it out.
Incredible sound system. They've always embraced technology and constantly upgraded it. You know, lights. It's just the full package.
Yeah.
And it's huge. There's something for everyone. 3 different rooms. You know, it's
Class.
really well run. It's a fantastic club, and it has that special place because you know it's a local
It's a
crowd
local
for
place,
me.
yeah.
That would be another
Oh,
one.
really?
Another club for me would be, I'm not even sure if it's still open, Ruder Club in Berlin, which was the first residency I had outside Ireland.
Right.
Quite a small club, as a lot of the clubs in Berlin are. And this is back when I was playing a lot of trance and techno.
Yeah.
And I had a monthly residency there for about 2 years.
Right.
And it just, again, to learn, not just play a one-off gig abroad, but to learn a crowd that were coming regularly
Right.
to see me, you know, and to just experience that in a different country was a real education for me. A totally different atmosphere to what I was used to here.
Class.
And I just absolutely loved it. It was a bit like the vaults in Dublin used to be. It was under a train station. It was like built into the arched vault of
Yeah.
a train station. And that's just one that springs to mind. I'm trying to think what else are the real standout ones. Government in Canada is one that just, again, another big iconic club. I think it might be called something else now.
Canada. Jeez.
That was a big one, you know, and that helped me with some gigs in North America then as well.
Right.
There's some festivals that spring to mind.
Yeah. What's your favorite festival?
One was Technogeist in Mexico. Again, the early days of playing abroad, and
Right.
it was part of an arts festival in a town called San Luis Potosí, somewhere in, I think, central Mexico.
Yeah.
And every year they still have it to this day, like an arts festival, and they'll have something else on. They've this big stadium, they build an amphitheater in the town square.
Right.
And it could be like, I don't know, the equivalent of a trad act on one night, like a big, and there'd be a big rock night the next night, there'd be dance music night one, whatever.
Jeez.
So like there were 50,000 people. It's a free gig and people come from all over. 50,000 people in front of me. I thought I was just going to play a gig in Mexico.
You didn't even know what you're going into.
I hadn't a notion. It was part of 3 dates I had in Mexico.
Right.
And I was, 2 of the dates I was supporting another DJ who was signed to the same agency as me.
Yeah.
By the way, a good agent will get you tagged on as support to the bigger artists in the agencies, just to go back to that. That was happening for me. And then there was this festival as well.
Right.
I couldn't believe my eyes. 50,000 people one stage by, I don't know what increment, the biggest crowd I've ever played to. And it was funny because I was kind of the only blonde hair, blue eyed European there on the stage. And I remember my manager saying to me, because I knew they didn't know me, like they were, how would these, I'd no tracks out at the time, I was known as a DJ.
Yeah.
They're not going to know me. I'm on the other side of the world. And they didn't. But he said, you're going to get a great response because they don't get many European DJs here. The other DJs on the lineup with me, bar one, were South American.
Right.
And Central American as well. So you're a novelty.
Yeah.
And they will assume you're much bigger than you are. Right. So embrace it.
Yeah.
And they did, and I did. And
brilliant.
I'll never forget. There are videos of it somewhere on, like, this around 2007 maybe.
Yeah.
Videos on a camcorder somewhere still of it. They're not up online, but I should dig them out and put them online.
Put them up, yeah.
Of like just the place going absolutely ballistic. Again, pinch me moment.
Yeah.
So I know it's not a club, but it's just one of those gig moments that really stands out as a top 5 career moment for me. The other one being when I first played Oxygen.
Right.
I think it was the last year of Oxygen, 2012 or 13, in around that anyway.
I think so.
And I was putting together a show. This was just before I got signed to Good Soldier Records in the UK. And I was starting to experiment with the more commercial side of it, but hadn't put out really many commercial releases. Okay. Those that I had were self-released. And I built this kind of show that was a little bit like social commentary at the time. I had a big intro with like an anti-bank stuff and some conspiracy stuff. It's funny because looking back at it now, a lot of it would be what you would see artists today. There was a little bit of Middle Eastern stuff in there too.
Right.
And I remember a promoter saying to me, nah, it's a bit, it's a bit too out there. Right. Whereas now it's almost par for the course. It's funny, like a little bit frustrating too, but this big show. And MCD, who were promoting the gig, like really liked it, and they thought, right, let's put it on. Let's put it on a stage, proper stage. So I was on late in the evening on the, the indoor arena in Punchestown, which is one of the big stages, the big dance arena. And again, it was the first time in Ireland. I'd done lots of festivals like Planet Love and stuff, but the first time in Ireland at a more kind of mainstream, not just a non-dance festival, an all-encompassing thing.
Yeah.
The big one on the calendar at the time, which EP would be now, obviously. Yeah. And it was validation for me. Right. And I always felt like I kind of struggled with that a little bit. I always had a sense of imposter syndrome in Ireland. I could roll with it based on the advice of my manager that time in Mexico abroad. Just roll with it. If they believe you're bigger, act like you're bigger, whereas here I knew everyone and it's a small place, and I just felt, no, I can't be this way, I can't be that way. That's when I kind of threw off the shackles. Right. And I thought, no, there are 10,000 people here in front of me, and there are lots of videos of that online. These are responding in a way I could never have imagined. I am rolling with this here now. Class. And it kind of it was a bit of a breakthrough for me in Ireland. I started to get a lot more bigger gigs off the back of that straight away. I started to get booked for festivals in a way I wasn't before. Yeah. So they're 5, 2 of them festivals, 3 of them clubs. Class. But they're probably the 5, I'd say. Yeah.
Do you know when you're like standing, right, and you're looking out at the crowd going absolutely belugas, right? Are you like, are you kind of shocked and you forget to kind of change the next song or a remix, or are you just so like,
no,
is it just a rhythm that you're just in it? It's kind
That's exactly flows? It. Yeah, it's a rhythm and a vibe, and I'm caught up. I feel like I'm with them.
Yeah.
And I often wonder, I love snooker, right?
Yeah.
And
that's mad.
I'm not great at it, like, but I
like,
love it.
You watch it, yeah?
Oh, I watch it and I play it a lot, like, right. So I really like it, and I'm always fascinated watching the top players, how, a bit like chess, how far ahead they're thinking.
Yeah.
And then you hear them in an interview and they actually say they're not thinking. It's so ingrained in them. They're in that zone.
Yeah.
And again, from reading sports books, like remember Roger Federer's book, Andre Agassi. I love tennis as well, and they'll talk about that zone. They're not thinking about the next shot. They're not consciously reacting. They've practiced so much that it just happens.
Yeah.
They're just feeling it, and it's like time slows down a little bit. That's what it's like for me when you've clicked. So you might have to feel out a crowd at the start, but once you click, there's a moment, and
Yeah.
it's a conscious moment, and I'll suddenly think, right, away we go.
Right.
And I've noticed, like, my manager would sometimes cop that in the middle of a gig. He'd go, oh, over your
There you
shoulder,
go.
guy, away we go. It's just kind of the catchphrase that
Yeah.
there are a few people who would know with me, one or two photographers who would be at a lot of gigs with me.
Yeah.
They just kind of know. And apparently I'm not aware of this. Apparently my body language slightly changes, and like if these moves or whatever, the way of dancing, everyone has their own kind of signature moves.
Yeah.
And apparently mine just shift into a different thing, and I'm not thinking anymore. Like,
Class.
I mean, if you were to break it down, I could probably tell you what they'll play in 4 tracks time,
Right.
but I could also tell you
It might change.
if they react this way to the next track,
You're going to say.
the other track in 4, it's a different track in 4 track. It sometimes reminds me
It's probably like driving a car.
of snooker or driving a car.
Yeah.
You're just in that zone. You're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just doing it.
Right.
And when you're enjoying it, the way you can have some drives that are boring and they're horrible and they never end.
Yeah.
You can have other times the time flies and you've enjoyed the drive.
Yeah.
That's what a gig is like for me, and I tend to enjoy almost all of them. There are gigs that are tougher than others,
Right.
but I enjoy that challenge as well, and the commercial gigs really set me up for that. The hardest gig in the world you'll ever do is a 21st in some clubhouse in the middle of nowhere with 50 people there, and you're trying to entertain 92-year-old great granny and 7-year-old kids at the same time and not piss anyone off.
Yeah.
A dance crowd with a crowd that are there to see me and enjoy the music that I'm playing and I've made is easy in comparison. So you can get that vibe really quickly, it's
Class.
and it's a zone. It's not a conscious thing at all.
Brilliant. And look, what's next for John Gibbons, right? Where are we
Yeah.
playing next? Where can we go see it if you want to see it?
Well, in Ireland, I suppose the big one this summer is EP.
Right.
I'm not sure when we're airing the podcast.
Right.
So I spoke about Carlo. I have a gig on the 22nd of August.
Right,
If
okay,
if
yeah.
that hasn't already happened.
Yeah. lovely. Get it out
In
for
Carlo, in the Foundry in Carlo, that'll be a big one. It's always a big gig.
Cool.
I tend to do New Year's Eve there as well.
Oh,
Actually
brilliant.
have for the last number of years. EP is the big one for me. There will be other gigs, like the college circuit will come back as well. I do a bit of that when it comes in.
Right.
A lot of that in the UK too.
Yeah.
I'm right in the middle of summer season, which is non-stop kind of Spanish resorts,
Back and forth,
so the likes that we spoke about BCN, the likes of Mallorca, Zante, Ibiza. I haven't done that many gigs over the years, actually. People ask me about this the whole time. I know you didn't,
Yeah.
but if you're interested, you must be in Ibiza the whole time. No, I've done very, very little, comparatively speaking,
Yeah.
in Ibiza, which I'm not really sure why.
Would you like to do more on Ibiza,
I
or
would like to do more in Ibiza, and I suppose
Play Ocean
Ibiza's
Beach?
evolved a lot, and there have been a lot of near misses and a lot of. I've done some of the smaller gigs. I've never done the really big clubs in Ibiza.
Okay.
And I think my style of music was too commercial when
Okay.
I was, I suppose, at my
Your peak?
my peak.
Yeah.
The obvious club there for me would have been maybe Pasha, but I was still a bit too commercial and not big enough. I'm not David Guetta,
Right.
who is so big that you can put him anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think I just kind of fell between the more underground nights and the more commercial nights. I wasn't going to do the ultra commercial because I'm still a dance TJ,
Yeah.
but I was perceivably a bit more, like, I don't play as commercial as some of the radio releases over the past while.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm now doing my alias brands as well.
Okay.
Because that ties everything together in a way that I wasn't able to do when it was with a previous label. So I'd love to do more on Ibiza, but a lot of the summer places likes of Tenerife as well.
Yeah.
So the Balearics, the Canary Islands, bit in Greece, not so much mainland Spain, but you get big Irish and English crowds in those places all summer long. So it's just in out every week over there. So
Yeah. Are you literally flying in and flying straight back out, or are you hanging around for the week, or?
generally in and out, because I still have studio work to do. I still have. I wouldn't have as many gigs in the summer in Ireland.
Yeah.
But studio work
Okay.
is very busy. Sometimes I will stay maybe for a week. Let's say I have a gig. So Mallorca is a good example. When I'm playing in Santa Ponsa, it tends to be the month of July, a weekly residency there.
Yeah.
So I will always in the middle of that, if there's a gig on a Sunday and the other Sunday, I'll just stay for the week then.
Right. Makes
And
sense.
you know, just turn it into a bit of a holiday.
Yeah.
But no, normally it's just in and out. You know, I love what I do, but it's a job at the end of the day. So I can't afford to just be sitting around and neglecting the studio, which is so important.
Yeah, and the studio work, right? Like, is if someone wants to work with you, can they just go work with you, or are they booking your studio for their own kind of piece of work? Or
at the moment, the studio is just for me.
Yeah.
It's just I don't rent it out commercially.
Yeah. Okay.
I do work with other people.
Do other people come down and kind of collaborate?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that goes on, and like for every track that's made in the studio, like for every 100 tracks that are made in the studio, only one ever gets released. You know, it's like any musician. You're just constantly making music, constantly collaborating with different people, and a lot of it doesn't ever see the light of day. But it's so instructive, informative, educational to work with other people.
Yeah.
Some you'll vibe with, some you won't. Some you'll continue to work with, some you won't. That's fine.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't have to be like, I remember at the start thinking, oh, it's only beneficial to collaborate with someone who's bigger than me, with a higher profile, better than me, so I can learn. I've discovered that that's not the case at all. Like I could learn just as much from someone who has never made a track before, who doesn't know how to use anything in a studio.
Right.
But they've got ideas because it's already in them. You know, I can learn just as much there as I can from working with. Now, I haven't ever worked with Max Martin, but if I was to get in a studio with Max Martin, so if the vibe feels right, I'll generally say yes. Sometimes I'm just too busy to be able to work with somebody else, and that's quite often the case.
Yeah.
But the door is never fully closed, and I'm a great believer in, if you don't ask, you won't get. And so I try to say if I can, even if it's, I've released tracks in the last few years with people who are completely unknown, because they came with a good idea.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great idea, so let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
Like, the idea is more important, and the track is more important than the individuals.
Then who it is.
A track comes on the radio, or a track hits your Spotify playlist, or you hear it in a club. People aren't thinking about who made it or what the dynamic was between the collaboration. Do I like the song or do I not? Is it making me dance? Is it making me move? Am I vibing with it or not?
Yeah.
That's all they're thinking about. So who cares if it's me and someone who was 17 who's never released a track, or me and it's someone who's 70 who has 10 number one albums behind them? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The audience don't think that way.
No, it's all about the sound. Or whatever. Okay, brilliant. And if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
All over the place. Like, my handle on everything is I am John Gibbons. So you'll find me on pretty much everything. Yeah.
Class. Right, brilliant, John. Thanks very much. That was great.
No, really appreciate it. Thanks a million.
And shout out to
Pleasure, Conor.
Dan from Tenerife Force Excursions for the introduction.
Dan's a great guy. Yeah, I'm actually going to see Dan in a couple of days. I'm heading over to him in a few
Tenerife.
days. Yeah.
I'm not back, I don't think, till before Christmas, but
Our paths might cross there.
definitely, yeah. Well, thanks very much, John.
Appreciate it, Conor.
that.
Thank you very much.
Special thanks to John for coming into the studio. If you enjoyed the episode, if you could hit that like, subscribe or follow button, that'd be great. Thanks for listening. Until the next time.